Hi, my name is Erica Olson with M3 Planning. Today's topic is organization-wide strategies. Because strategy is such a confusing word, let's start with the definition first, and we just confuse it with tactics and goals and all sorts of other things in planning. And think of it as a method, a series of maneuvers, and my favorite word, which is guardrails. So an analogy would be if you're climbing a mountain, going from base camp to the summit, what's your strategy? Is it 2 people, 4 people, 6 people on your team? Are you roped? Are you unroped? Which path are you taking up the mountain? Are you using crampons and ice axes, or are you hiking? All of those components would make up your strategy. Organizations have different levels of strategy, and today's talk is specifically about organization-wide strategies, but let's put it in context first. Corporate level strategies, there are 3. Growth, stabilization, and retrenchment. Most of the time in planning, we're focusing on growth, but not always, sometimes stabilization, especially in government today. Organization-wide strategies are more specific to the business unit or perhaps the overall organization at that time. So it tends to be somewhat time-based or plan-based, as the case may be. So we have 2 boxes here because if you have different business units, you may be executing different organization-wide strategies. Footnote, Michael Porter is the one that dreamt this up, and he calls these generic strategies. So we're going to talk about that more in just a minute. Within these strategies, you're always executing market-level strategies for specific markets, such as going deeper in your current markets, entering new ones, expanding perhaps geographically or by new products and new services. So market-level strategies is the next level of strategy. That is a maneuver or guardrails to go after a specific market. But let's pop it up to here, because this is where we tend to get quite confused. So over here, there are, of course, 3 organization-wide strategies. And they're based on 2 axes. The scope of competition, is it broad or narrow? Is the market broad or narrow? So this tends to be pretty confusing. Let's clarify it for just a minute. These 2 particular strategies are focused on the fact that you're going after a non-specific, maybe multi-market segments that might have similar needs. They probably do. That's why they're buying your products and services, but it's fairly broad. More specific is the customer intimacy strategy, where perhaps you're developing specific products and services to meet a very specific narrow market segment. I wouldn't think about this so much based on the size of the market as much as it is need-based. This axis up here is your base for competition, so your competitive advantages. Is it primarily cost, or is it primarily uniqueness? So total cost is the intersection of low cost or lowest cost or best price and a broad market. Don't confuse this with the fact that it's always the lowest cost, because it might not be. Southwest is our poster child for the low cost strategy. It's not always the best price, but definitely the total best cost. IKEA is another example. The strategy looks like limited options, best price, convenience, limited selection. And we're definitely buying, Walmart's another one, we're definitely buying because we have a perception as a consumer that it's the best cost. Product service leadership, on the other hand, is competing based on the uniqueness of the product and service to a large target market. Examples here, and again, we know these well, Apple, Intel, and perhaps from sort of the newer companies, let's go with Groupon. These strategies get executed based on innovation and very much first to market. You do not get to execute this strategy if you're not first to market. Customer intimacy is leveraging both uniqueness and cost to more of a narrow market. Now let's not get confused. Both this strategy and this strategy require you to know your customers. So that don't forget that. None of us would, of course, in today. But this strategy is first starting with targeting a narrow market and building upward from that choice. Examples of that would be Nordstrom's and Goldman Sachs. So this strategy is about building relationships and the best service with your customers and all the systems and infrastructure to make that happen. Think about how Nordstrom's does that for their clients. So the big problem that people have with organization-wide strategies is you have to do all of these things, and that's absolutely true. You have to be standard at cost and product and service in order to execute a customer intimacy strategy, and vice versa for all of these. What we're asking in strategy is, what are you competing on? What are you leading with? What are your customers seeing first? What choices are you making when it comes to investments around R&D, around internal structure, around CRM systems, such that you're able to beat the market with the strategy that you're leading with? And if you don't do that, Michael Porter would say that you're stuck in the middle and you're kind of just wishing around. So in your strategic planning, make sure that you're clear on what your organization-wide strategy is, and make sure your whole plan supports executing one of these three to the best that you can.